Hi everyone, it is a new week and time for a new weekly vlog. And for this week, I've decided to play Danny's Bucket List-athon game board. Bucket List-athon, this is the second year that this readathon is happening, and Danny Dabbles is the creator of this readathon and this game board. I will leave all the information down below. I am just going to roll as I go through the week and see what the game board has in store for me. I am going to start on the series end of the board, because I have a lot of series that I'm in the middle of, and also a couple books that I'd really like to get to before the end of the year if the game board so chooses to give those to me. So let's do our first roll and see where we end up. We got a 6. Let's see where that gets me on the board. I just have the board over here. I will put it in editing somewhere here. So we have ended up on a backlist read. I am finally going to continue with The Simple Wild. I read a book about a week ago now that was very similar to the first book of The Simple Wild, and it made me want to dive back into this series. The story was different, but it was reminiscent enough that it made me be like, why have I not gone back to The Simple Wild? So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start with Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker. As you can see, it's raining, so you may have a little bit of rain ambiance in this clip with it hitting the windshield, but I need to update you on Wild at Heart. I actually have it with me. We're about to go into the library for a couple of library classes, so I am going to be reading while I'm there, and I want to keep reading, but I've hit the 50% point of Wild at Heart. The first book follows Calla, and we really pick up right from the conclusion of the first book. Calla in the first book goes home to Alaska. She's not been there since she was like 2 years old. She hasn't seen her father in 20 plus years. He has cancer, so she goes to kind of like see him, see if there's a way to like rebuild the relationship in his terminal battle with cancer, and she goes to Alaska. She lives there with him, and she also falls in love with one of his bush pilots, Jonah. I gave the first book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And since this book follows really the conclusion of the first book, I'm not going to be able to talk too much about the plotting of this book, but it still follows Calla's life in Alaska. This one really following how her life has changed from living in Toronto to living in Alaska, what it's like to live in Alaska. There's homesteading content, which I love watching homesteading vloggers, so like I'm enjoying the homesteading content. And just seeing how Calla kind of alters her life to live in such a rural place. Her mother went to Alaska to try and live with her father for a time and actually fled back to Toronto because she hated being so rural. And we're seeing Calla kind of grappling with that in the first book and also grappling with that in the second book. Could she be happy in Alaska? And we're still trying to figure that out, I think. It's really different living next to wild animals and in really remote places. And we're seeing Calla and Jonah's relationship trying to figure their way through that. Since Jonah is native to Alaska, he's used to Alaska, he knows Alaska, and this is very different. So that's what we're following in the book, and I'm actually really liking it. I wasn't sure if I was going to love this one as much as the first, just because the first is more of a contemporary romance with a lot of family drama around it, but it is still a contemporary romance where they're together. So like there's no new romance in this book. So it does put it more into a contemporary fiction story, which not always works for me, but so far this is working. I'm going to keep reading this in the library, and I don't know how far I'll get today, but I'm hoping to maybe finish it. So last night I finished Wild at Heart, and this one, as I expected, the romance is definitely like the B plot to this book. This book really focuses on community. It focuses on found family. It focuses on finding your people and making your life with those people, making your village. And I adored that. I really loved the characters in this book. These characters are so complex. How they have all ended up in the backwoods of Alaska is so complex. Some people grew up there and have always been there, but maybe have lost people to the wilderness. Some people have come running away from things in their real life that they now can't be around or don't associate with. There are so many layers to this book. I did not love it as much as the first, but I really did love it, and I gave it 4 stars. It definitely makes me wonder why I waited so long to continue with this series. Like, it's been almost 2 years since I read the first book. I definitely am excited to read the novella and the final book in the series, hopefully sooner rather than later. Will Bucket List-athon board let me do it? Who knows? I have the other 2 books on Kindle, so I definitely could. It just depends on how the rolls go, which is exactly what we are about to do because I want to know what my next read is. So let me grab the dice and we will see what the board has in store for my second read for this vlog. Okay, let's see what we get. A 3. I have no idea what that's going to get me because there is a couple of different ways I can go depending on where we are on the board. So let me look at the board just for a second, and I will come back with what prompt I'm doing and what book I'm doing it with. So I had 2 options that I could take with this board, and I've decided to go the route of end of year goal instead of old read, because there is a book that I was really hoping would fit onto this week's TBR. If I had any opportunity to get this book on the TBR, it was going to happen. I read the first book in August, adored this series. Read the second book last month, also gave it 5 stars. We're looking at 2 5 stars in the series, so let's see if the trilogy can wrap up as an all 5-star trilogy. If you've been around, you probably know what I'm about to pull out, and that is Emperor of Ruin by Django Wexler. I am going to finish the Ashes of the Sun series, which is an end-of-the-year goal since I read the first one. This book, the first book, is currently sitting as my best book of the year. I want to be able to talk about all 3 in my best books of the year video. So I need to finish all 3 before the end of the year. Therefore, it is an end of the year goal, and I am going to read it now. I'm so excited to read this book. The last book, the way it ended, so much was happening. So much was occurring. I did not know where we're going. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's happening with my characters, and I cannot wait to dive in and find out, but I'm also sad to finish this trilogy. I'm excited to see how it ends, but I'm sad to see how it ends because it will be the last book that I ever get to read new from these characters. This is probably going to take me a couple days to read, and again, it is the final book in a trilogy, and especially this week where I'm working on series, there's definitely not much of the plots that I can talk about in these books, but I will tell you about my vibes, how I'm feeling, and I hope that brings you joy because I feel like this is going to bring me all the feels as I go through this book. I just recently passed the 50% point of Emperor of Ruin. I am loving this book. I'm having a great time. I think I'm getting emotional even when the book isn't emotional, just because I'm sad to leave this series and these characters and knowing that we're coming to an end. We're seeing a lot of side characters that we met in the first 2 books kind of pop up, and we're having moments with them with our main characters kind of closing out their storylines as well. You can really tell that this is the end of the series. We're getting a lot of answers, which I have been wanting the entire series. I never really could tell who was right, who was wrong, what side was the right side. Not fully. I would oscillate. And now we're finally getting those answers. We're even getting some flashbacks to a time prior to Maya and Geyer, to years and centuries before, to find out how all the things happened to lead us to this moment with these brother and sister trying to take down all the evil in their world. I don't know if I said in this video what this book is about. I've definitely said it 100 times in other videos, so I'll keep it really, really quick. But it follows sister and brother Maya and Geyer. At the age of 5, Maya was taken by the Order because she had the powers of the Chosen, and she could pull on the powers of the Chosen to become a centaur. Geyer fights the people taking her and actually loses his eye and has a hate on for the Order. Now, in their late teens, early 20s, she is almost a full centaur in the Order. He is the leader of a rebellion army. And they are on two sides of this war and this political system. And through the series, we kind of figure out where is the right side? Who is right? Who is wrong? Is there a middle gray? All that stuff. As always, the character work in these books is top tier. The banter, the sarcasm, the wittiness of some of our characters is why I fell in love with this. I love that in a book. And I think I'm going to be emotional no matter what happens at the end of this because I just adore this book so much and I adore this series so much. And as much as I wanted all these answers and I wanted to know what was happening and fully see their story, I really don't want it to be over. Not really. It kind of makes me sad that it's going to be over soon. But I'm going to keep reading. I still have fair few hours left on sprints. I think we're only in our second sprint. You'd think I would know, but it kind of all becomes a blur on Thursdays. But we still have about 4 hours of sprints left before I have Bones with the patrons tonight where we're starting season 4. Last week we went through it when we did Bones. If you've seen the season 3 finale of Bones, you will know how much we all went through it last week. So now we're going to start season 4 tonight, which shouldn't be as heavy as last week. Which is probably good because I think reading this and also having a heavy Bones episode would have been too much. So it's good that those happened on opposite weeks. For my emotional stability, it's good that happened on opposite weeks.
Oh, I can just see her so beautiful and sweet with her hair and her actions more tame. She's probably less damaged and has a nice family, though my brothers would have loved you the same.
I have officially finished Emperor of Ruin, and as much as I love this series, and I did really like the last book, it is my least favorite in the series. We had a lot to close out in this series, to be honest. There was a lot that needed to happen in this book, and we did get it all. I do feel like the ending was very rushed. We had 30 pages left in the book, and I was like, how in the world are we wrapping up this trilogy in 30 pages? And we did, but I could have used it to be a little bit longer. I felt like we built up to this moment at the end, and it just kind of happened in the blink of an eye. I could have used that to be a bit longer. Aside from that, I do think villain origin stories are not necessarily my favorite. I've read a few, and they're not really my favorite. This is not that completely, but there is an aspect to this that is finding out how we got here, which reads as a villain origin story, and that's never really something that I overly care about. I don't need to know the motivations of our criminals necessarily, or our villains, or whatever they are in the story. It's not something that I seek out. So all that being said, I did really love this trilogy. I love this trilogy. It's going to still be one of the best trilogies I've ever read. It's still going to be my best books of the year as a set, but this one I did only give 4 stars, where the other 2 I did give 5. However, I still highly, highly, highly recommend it. And I think it makes sense that this is only a 4 because I feel like, especially with how much I love this series, it's hard to have it wrap up exactly how I would be happy with. Does that make sense? I think with any series, it's hard to really wrap it up in the best way for every single person. And for me, this just didn't live up to the first 2 books by the tiniest of measures. It's still a 4-star book. It's still a great series. Please pick this up if you like epic fantasy. You will really like this series. Like, please pick it up. Prior to this, you did see my B-roll, and I did do my final roll for Bucket List-athon for this week. I only have 1 more day in the week, so 1 more roll. That's how we're going to go with it. I did finish a series, and I decided to pick up the Mind F series and finally finish it. I binged the first 4 books in this series during Readathon Peace Talks way back in like March or April. I think it was April. I binged all 4 books, didn't get to the 5th before the end of Peace Talks, and haven't touched it since. So I am going to be reading Paint It All Red for the rest of today. It's only like a 3-hour audiobook at my listing speed, so I should be able to knock this out and find out the conclusion of this serial killer FBI romance. She's the serial killer. He's trying to find this serial killer. He starts dating this woman, and she is the serial killer that he's looking for. It's a really good, intense thriller with a romance. It's not as smutty as I thought it was going to be going in, but it really does give you those Criminal Minds vibes, and I really liked the first 4. Excited to finally find out the conclusion.
She knows, and I'll bet that she'll get everything that I want, 'cause I couldn't tell you what I want. I envy you met through a friend on a lovely fall day. Just felt meant to be.
So I actually finished Paint It All Red a couple of days ago and completely forgot to come talk to you because honestly, I was so underwhelmed with this book. This book was not nearly as good for me as the start of the series was, and I just didn't really care. The whole time I was listening to it and reading it, I did not care. I didn't care. I think there might be 2 reasons to that. I don't necessarily know if it's fully a book problem. I think these should have been 1 large book and not split up into 5 smaller books. I think it would be best to binge the entire thing in like 1 sitting over the course of a couple of days. I did that with the first 4, and I remember feeling fatigued at the end of the 4th book, but I think it was more because I did it over a weekend readathon. Had I read it over the course of more days, I think that would have worked better. So realistically, I don't think these needed to be broken down into 5 individual books, even though they are novella length. Secondly, I don't think this is currently the era that I am in. When I read them earlier in the year, I was still reading a bit more thrillers than I have read all year. I have not read thrillers or even romance thrillers or anything in that genre, suspense romance, whatever you want to call this. I haven't read any of that in the last like 6 months. Not at all. And I thought since I enjoyed the first ones in the series, that wouldn't matter. And I was excited to pick this up. But as soon as I started reading it, I realized it just wasn't what I wanted, wasn't what I wanted to be reading, wasn't what I wanted to be doing. But I have finished the series. So you know what? I did get a series off my shelf. I actually finished 2 series in this vlog, which is actually very good. Thank you so much, Danny and Bucket List-athon, for helping me finish off 2 more series off my list. But with that, I have already started vlogging another vlog because I have actually finished this a couple days ago and forgot to come and talk to you. So I'm actually like well into another vlog and need to finish this one out. Danny, thank you so much for making this game board. It is super fun. You still have tons of time to play this game. It goes right into December. So if you don't know anything about Bucket List-athon and want to participate, I have it all linked down below. Go check it out. Danny's amazing. The game board's amazing. Everything about it, so fun. If you made it all the way to the end of the vlog but have nothing to say down in the comments, leave me like a list emoji, like a to-do list emoji for getting those end of the year bucket list items done. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.